All right, Clayton, after the show, it's the AfterB.O. Welcome everyone to our YouTube web exclusive, the AfterB.O. So, Clayton, we just recorded a classic episode, a supersized episode with the legend himself, the box office daddy, Scott Mendelson. I mean, he's back. He's
Yep.
back on the B.O. Boys. How great was that?
It's great to have him back, and he didn't disappoint. I mean,
No.
we had so many stories to run past him. He touched on everything, and it's just great to sit down with the man himself.
Yeah. Yeah. So, of course, if you haven't already watched that episode here on our YouTube channel, and here on the AfterB.O, we wanted to do a little trailer talk this episode.
Mhm.
So, the Madam Web trailer dropped today. That is
Yes.
coming out. It's a Sony Spider-Man universe movie coming out in 2024. Is that next summer? Is that a summer movie? Because Craven's in like April. Is Madam Web a summer movie?
I'm looking
But
right now. Madam Web is going to be February 16th,
oh, so
2024.
so Madam Web is coming out before Craven. So Madam
Yes.
Web is coming out a winter movie. So it's Dakota Johnson, it's Sydney Sweeney, sort of. I mean, here's what I'll say. They didn't give me enough Sydney Sweeney in this trailer.
Yeah, yes. I mean, Sydney Sweeney should be the Dakota Johnson part.
Yes.
I mean,
Yes.
that's just where we're headed as a society, and I think
Yes.
that's good and positive.
Yes. Yes.
Um, I think what we mentioned this trailer and the Craven trailer on our regular episode, and I think Scott really nailed it that it was one of the most incoherent trailers he's ever seen, and it is. It makes no sense,
Mhm.
and it introduces all these concepts that would be, I guess, for comic book nerds, something they know about. But you have a character in this film that is ostensibly, I think, the villain who is dressed like Spider-Man in black, but is not Venom. And so you
Right.
have this character that is acting like Spider-Man, and it is never mentioned
Never mentioned.
why he jumps around and acts like Spider-Man when he is in fact not Spider-Man and he is not Venom. So who the general public is going to be so confused by this.
Yeah. Yeah. And also in this trailer, the character, the movie is called Madam Web.
Mhm.
That would make you think, okay, it's a female Spider-Man with Spider-Man powers. But the Dakota Johnson character in this trailer seems to have like fortune telling powers, not web powers, not spider climb powers, not spider biting powers. I mean, this trailer just you're right. It seems like a mess. It also here's what this trailer felt like. They are aware that the superhero genre is in decline. And so they're trying to hide the superhero aspect of this movie and make it feel like, oh, maybe it's a fortune telling movie. Like I think this trailer just felt confused in the premise, but also in them being scared of, do we actually want to say this is a superhero movie?
Well, here's the thing, Pat. In the history of the Marvel universe, Madam Web is a character that doesn't have Spider-Man powers, but can see into the future. Do you see the link I sent you?
Okay, you sent a link. Yes, I'm seeing this link from something
Click on
called
that.
Exerto. So this is not gonna take my identity if I click on
No.
Exerto.
Look at Madam Web on the cover of that comic book if you scroll down.
Oh, I see. So she's like a Professor X type. Like she
She's an
sits
old
in a
lady.
chair. She's an
She's
old
an old
lady who sits in
lady.
a chair. Interesting. So this should have been Helen Mirren, not Dakota Johnson. or
Yes. I
Dame
mean,
Judi Dench.
but what they did was make this an active character.
Right. Yeah, in this comic, Madam Web is sitting in a chair with glasses on and big pearl earrings, and she may be dead.
I think she is sightless, possibly, but she can see the future.
Got it, got it. Yeah, that's the thing with these Sony Spider-Man spinoffs. Obviously, Venom worked and people love Tom Hardy's Venom, but this is a real band of ragamuffins. Madam Web, Craven. We saw what Morbius like. These are some jokers here, and not the Joker. These are just a couple of doofuses. Madam Web
Yeah,
seems
not
like
to
a
be
doofus.
confused.
Yeah,
And so I guess, okay, in the comics, I read a little bit more of this article. This character that we see in the movie played by Dakota Johnson is the character that the powers were passed on to from the old lady.
got it.
So
Okay,
what we're going to see in this movie is the original, maybe, I don't know,
maybe
but
they might cut
maybe
the old lady totally out of this movie.
the old lady touches her. This
Right,
old lady we've never met who has these
right.
powers touches her, and then we have the second Madam Web before we even meet the first Madam Web.
Yeah.
It's basically like Jimmy Olsen getting shot at the what he got shot during what the Batman v Superman, was that when he gets shot and executed?
Oh, right. Jimmy Olsen gets executed off screen in one of those Zack Snyder movies. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I get maybe them not wanting to focus on the old lady in the trailer, but to me, Dakota Johnson's no better in terms of trying to sell a movie. Like,
Hmm.
God bless her. God bless Don Johnson. God bless Melanie Griffith. God bless America. But Dakota Johnson is just, to me, such a charisma vacuum, and her being the lead of a blockbuster. I mean, obviously she was the lead of those 50 Shades of Grey movies, and those were all huge, but I mean, again, Sydney Sweeney's got personality. Dakota Johnson in this trailer just comes off as such a big nothing.
uh,
And I don't know, maybe I'm being too harsh, and I don't want
no.
Don Johnson beating my ass in his pastel shirts because he can and he would, but
Well, you could have Antonio Banderas coming to beat your ass too, because he's the stepdad.
yeah, I mean, listen, I get it. I get there's a lot of old action stars who might beat my ass after this YouTube video drops, and they're probably all subscribers, but yeah, I mean, hanging a giant superhero movie on Dakota Johnson just feels iffy. This trailer just had nothing from her in it.
I think that Venom is a fluke. I think you had a character people had been waiting for, plus a great performance from Tom Hardy, a fun performance. I don't want to say great. Maybe some people don't think it's great, but a fun performance from Tom Hardy, right? I think the direction Sony's taking with these villains movies is this weird hybrid of that dark, edgy 90s comic book movie coupled
Yeah.
with the complete confusing sort of continuity of the later bad Marvel movies. So you
Yes.
have the worst of both worlds, because I don't want to say just copy Marvel, because obviously Marvel is creatively bankrupt at this point. But the vein they're heading down is laughable. And I mean, you saw it with Morbius. You're seeing it with Craven. That trailer got ripped on so hard. And now this one is also getting the same treatment. So if I'm Sony, and I know I mentioned, in the past episode, this episode we just did, that it doesn't matter, this thing's could bomb and then there'd be big on Netflix. But you don't want this thing to fail. You don't want the Marvel, the Spider-Man, which is your marquee character, the extension of that universe. You don't want these to be laughed at, because then you have to go back to the drawing board again.
Right, right. I mean, their whole plan was these Morbius, Venom, and Venom, of course, is working, but Morbius, Craven, Madam Web,
Vulture,
Vulture, that all these movies would lead to basically their Avengers.
Sinister Six.
Right. Sinister Six versus Spider-Man. That would be their, $2 billion Avengers type movie. And Morbius ain't ever going to see the light of day again. And this trailer for Madam Web and that trailer we saw for Craven, I mean, I think all of these are going to bomb. I mean,
And,
of course,
and
Venom 3 is going to be huge, but this Madam Web, I think, is going to fully get eaten up by we're sick of superheroes. And again, not to rag on Dakota Johnson and get my ass beat by Don Johnson, but
Antonio
compared to
Banderas.
Antonio Banderas and Melanie Griffith, she would also whip my ass.
Yeah, absolutely.
100%. But Dakota Johnson in this trailer, at least, seems like she's giving a performance that is completely contractual. The thing that works for Venom is Tom Hardy looks like he's out there trying and want to be there. And in this Madam Web trailer, Dakota Johnson, she looks confused and I guess that's sort of her thing. That was her thing in the 50 Shades movies, but she really looks like she knows she's above the material in this movie. And that is not usually what audiences want from these superhero movie performances, where the actor seems very much not wanting to be there. And again, we're only going based on a 2-minute trailer, but she did not look like she wants to be there. And who would?
And the Sydney Sweeney situation, if you're cutting this trailer, I don't care if Sydney Sweeney's in this movie for 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Your trailer is she's the main character.
Yeah.
Is that the reactions you see are, how is Sydney Sweeney reacting to fake Spider-Man that's in the black suit, but not Venom, that is acting like Spider-Man? Like,
right.
how does she react to it? Because that's who I would want to see in this movie.
And
I don't want to see Dakota Johnson. I want to see
right.
Sydney Sweeney.
And that's who the young people, I would guess, do want to see, because one of the things that has become a monoculture moment for young people is Euphoria. And we saw it with Zendaya. Zendaya is a star. She is a movie star. Zendaya. Happy birthday, Zendaya. That's how I remember it. It's always her birthday. Zendaya is a star. I mean, we're seeing it to a very small degree, but we've gotten boots on the ground reporting that people are going to see Priscilla, young people, because of Jacob Elordi from Euphoria. Sydney Sweeney, obviously a big breakout star from that show. You're right. She's the Dakota Johnson, 50 Shades. The 12 to 22-year-olds do not give a flying F about 50 Shades of Grey. They care about Euphoria. So yeah, Sydney Sweeney should have been all over this trailer. Was there any other like Easter eggs in this trailer that you picked up on? You're the comic book guy. You're the comic book guy of us.
I read comic books when I was an appropriate age to read comic books. So my continuity ends in 1992.
Okay.
So
you know who all these people are. You knew Madam Web was an old lady.
Yeah, because she debuted in the 80s.
Well, but that's what I'm saying. These are all comics that weren't written 2 months ago. They're all
the Spider-Man that is not Venom is a character I don't know.
Okay. So, and any hints towards Venom being in this movie?
No,
from
they
that
didn't.
Trailer?
I mean, it's going to be connected. I mean, they're going to connect all these villains. So the assumption is Craven will do something in it, possibly Morbius, Venom. There's a possibility they all sort of show up in this at some point, doing something.
So there was no hint in this trailer that they're gonna like find Morbius's corpse and shit on it or anything. Like, we don't think there's any Morbius in this movie based on the trailer that dropped.
No. I mean, there was nothing there that for me I picked up on.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, listen, next year, 2024 is light because of the production stoppage this year, but Madam Web, I mean, I think we've got a Quantumania situation in terms of a February box office failure. Not in terms of this movie's going to get nowhere reaching the 100 million that Quantumania made, but just in the sense of in February, this movie's going to come out and I think is going to way, way underperform.
I mean, I don't even know if it's underperforming because
True.
the expectations are so low. I
Yeah.
mean, that you can't say it's an underperformance if something isn't even supposed to perform to begin
True.
with.
True. All right. So that was our trailer talk on Madam Web. Anything else that you have for the after show, Clayton? Anything that's been burning your bottom that you want to get off your
Uh,
chest?
you and we can't get into this because we want to end quickly, but
Yeah.
just to talk a little bit, Jimmy Kimmel has been announced as the Oscar host again.
Yeah.
And my thought is, I mean, you said this off mic, you said,
I
steady hand, get a steady hand.
I mean, that is what he is.
We
He's a
are,
steady hand.
when it comes to the Academy Awards, we are past steady hands. It is not about steady hands. It is about getting young people to be interested. And Jimbo Kimball does not interest young people. He's a
But
mayonnaise man. Nobody cares about the mayonnaise men. Nobody
huh,
is watching their shows.
huh,
Huh?
huh,
You jumped on the huh. The huh.
huh.
This is when the Academy really doubles down and tries to get somebody great because they have a chance to have movies people actually saw be winning awards. And then they throw this Jimbo Kimball in our face and we don't want it.
I get that, but at the same time, nobody wants to host these shows anymore. Nobody. And of course, in a perfect world, Matt Pat or Logan Paul is hosting the Academy Awards. Someone who speaks to the young people. Or of course, Taylor Swift. In a perfect world, they could announce Taylor Swift is the host of the Oscars, but nobody wants this gig. It is a lose-lose, especially if you're a young person. Especially if you're someone who is gotten out. What Logan Paul is going to go test jokes out at the Comedy Cellar for
What?
2 months,
Why not? He'd be perfect because
but he
if
doesn't.
if
He's
if
got
it
no
fails,
time.
it's not gonna hurt him at all because he doesn't. The investment there isn't like. I mean, I think he's a bad example because you're right. He is a champion. He has a
He's
belt. He's
Yes,
busy.
he's the US champion. He's traveling the world. He's fighting in Saudi Arabia. He's drinking prime everywhere.
Eh, eh, well, why don't you get somebody like? And I don't like this guy, but Pete Davidson. At least that's somebody that is younger.
Yeah, I just think that no one wants to do this. I mean, I think that's where we're at
So
in
then that's
that.
a bigger problem for the Academy. So if nobody wants to host this show, then that means this show is over. That means
I,
that you're just going to be treading water. This is eventually going to end up on a streamer. It's eventually going to end up on, Hulu, and that's it. And so what you're saying is they should just give up
no,
because
no.
it's
I
already
think
sealed. He is not going to bring the Oscars back from the dead. So all they're doing is treading water.
no, but I think that the host is not going to be the thing that reboots this anyway. The host part of it is going to be the steady hand. It's going to be the person who but you could still do things both in terms of what movies are focused on, because in the end people are going to watch this or not watch it because they're interested in what movies and actors and actresses are nominated. Like that is going to be why people watch. And I do think the host, sure, if you got Taylor Swift, if you got Zendaya, if you got a giant name like that,
But
it would
there's never
affect, it
been a
would move the
giant
needle.
name. There's never been giant names hosting the Oscars other than
But
Johnny Carson, who was a god, but he was a TV god.
but I think that Billy Crystal, greatest host ever,
Yes.
was not necessarily the reason. He in his day, and I'm not comparing them quality wise, but he was that steady hand of the era. And the reason that the people were into the Oscars is because they were into the Oscars, because they
Oh,
cared
Pat,
about. I know
stop
everyone.
it. As
We were all
young
excited.
people,
We were
stop it.
all excited, but the movies and interest in the movies is what made people watch the Oscars. And then Billy Crystal was just the greatest of all time and making those shows good. But
I think you are forgetting how excited as young people we were to know this was a Billy Crystal hosted Oscars.
it just, we took it for granted. They all were. But you look, people were into the Whoopi Goldberg hosted Oscars. And, there was just the era of people were into the
Well,
Oscars.
okay, but I
It's
mean,
not like the ratings dropped off a cliff the years Billy Crystal wasn't the host. He was a steady hand. Whoopi Goldberg was steady hand. Again, Billy Crystal was the greatest at it, but the host isn't going to be the reason people watch or don't watch unless you do a stunt, unless you get a giant star or you get like a giant bozo or something that people want to watch, fall off the stage.
I think it's crazy that you went from somebody like Billy Crystal to now somebody like Jimmy Kimmel, who their age difference is not that much. It should be
Oh,
way
Billy
it should
Billy
be a
Crystal's old.
it
I
should be
love
a
him, but he's
way
old.
it should be a way bigger age difference from 91, a guy who hosted in the 90s, to a guy who's hosting in 2023.
I mean, people stay in better shape than they did back then. I mean, Jimmy Kimmel, what is he? He's in his 50s. He's 56. I mean, how old was Billy Crystal in the 90s? He was in his 40s.
40s, yeah. I think
But
the big
50 is the
issue
new 40.
I
Listen,
think
Kimmel's not as talented as Billy Crystal, but he's the
no
steady
shit.
hand. He's the
I
steady
hate that
hand.
steady hand. What a steady hand for what? To go into so did you need a steady hand on the Titanic to drive the boat into the iceberg? Because
No,
that's what it is. If you have a steady hand, you're driving into the iceberg. If you have somebody that can maneuver and say, I want to do this, damn the fact that this could ruin my career or people are just going to dunk on me. I don't care because I care about the Oscars as a cultural event. You need somebody to step up. And the fact that nobody will step up means that nobody cares. So that means that the steady hand is going to drive the Oscars into a fucking iceberg.
but
And I'll see you in 3 years when it's on fucking Hulu
but
next to
it's not going to be
Vacation
because of the
Friends
host.
2.
It's not going to be because of the host. It's going to be because of ABC won't exist. I do think it's a little overblown that the Oscars are going to be on Hulu in 2 years. The Oscars will be the last of these shows to not be on network TV. And as long as network TV exists, I think the Oscars will be on it. And
I
just
disagree.
uh,
I disagree.
it's
I think within 5 years we're going to see the Oscars only on streaming.
I disagree. Unless of course network TV goes away. If they're which I don't think is happening in the next 5-10 years, it'll get smaller and all the audiences will get smaller. But the Oscars are easily going to be the last award show standing on network TV. The ratings that it does for network is smaller than it's ever been, but it's still fine compared to what network TV does. And it's not going to be about the host. It's just going to be about,
The
do
host
people
is a
care about,
symptom of the problem, Pat.
but
Because when you had
but
current
choosing Kimmel,
stars,
but
when you had current
choosing
stars like
Kimmel
Billy
instead of Pete
Crystal,
Davidson isn't going to matter.
yeah,
Pete
it
Davidson
does
doesn't
matter.
matter.
It matters. It matters because of what it looks like. Billy Crystal was hosting the Oscars when he was also starring in big movies that made AfterB.O. Jimmy Kimmel is on a show that nobody watches. He is on a show that has less viewers than any episode of SNL. I mean, he gets
But
a
Pete Davidson,
point
yeah,
oh
yeah,
eight.
Pete Davidson's on a Peacock show, and I know he's an Instagram star and all that, but like Pete Davidson is not someone that the Oscar audience wants to see. And I don't think the younger people care about seeing him in anything other than rumors about who he's dating. I mean, I think that's been made clear. The Pete Davidson SNL bombed in the ratings this year. Total bomb in the ratings. It doesn't matter.
Then get Nate Bargatze. Get
Well,
Nate Bargatze to do
but
it.
you're just arguing who you like more. You know, like, and I
I'm
get it.
arguing
Kimmel's
somebody
not
who
our
is
cup of tea. Kimmel's not our guy, but it doesn't matter if it's him hosting or Nate Bargatze
Yes, it
or
does.
I
Because
mean, it does matter because
Bargatze
Jimmy
popped
Kimmel's way more
off,
known.
but
He
he
had a
popped
good
off.
episode. He's not as famous a person as Jimmy Kimmel, you know?
All right. We both love the Oscars, but if they continue to have him as host,
It won't
then
matter.
steady. Okay, well then you are saying,
the
Pat,
show, there's other things they have to do about this show to get more people to watch. Jimmy Kimmel hosting or not hosting doesn't matter unless the alternative is Zendaya or some kind of big star. Obviously, if they could get Zendaya and Tom Holland to host, that changes things. But if it's like Jimmy Kimmel versus a comedian you like more, it doesn't matter.
you're saying let it die. You're saying let it die.
I'm saying that Jimmy Kimmel is not causing any illness to this body.
That is, if it's not the main illness, it is an indication of sickness. That's what I'm saying. It is something that is showing that this is a decaying body.
Give me some regular, like, realistic options of who should be the host, who would make a difference, an actual difference. Like Nate Bargatze makes this seem way more, and I think he's funny. Nate Bargatze being announced as the host of the Oscars makes people think, holy shit, they have to cut the budget, and this thing is really headed for a streamer. You know, like,
well,
Jimmy Kimmel doesn't make people think that. So who are actual people who, not Zendaya, not someone who we both agree would change the ratings, who should host instead of Jimmy Kimmel that would make it better?
This has been floated before, and they probably turned it down because, again, like you said, it's dying, so who cares? But you get the cast of Only Murders in the Building. You get Steve Martin, who's a steady hand. Talk about a steady hand. He's already done it. Martin Short, who's never done it. And then you have Selena Gomez, who is for the young people, which by young people, we mean the millennials, right? Because Gen Z is not going to watch. That would move the needle.
I don't think so. Not at all. That's just people you like better. And I agree. No. Steve Martin and Martin Short are funnier than Jimmy Kimmel, but they're all the same.
Pat, that's a show that people watch. Nobody watches Jimmy Kimmel live. Nobody watches it.
But
people watch Only Murders in the Building.
But you're just saying, sure, that would be better. It would not. I disagree that would matter at all, or that it would. I mean, Selena Gomez is obviously means something to younger people, but that is not some kind of indicator that the Oscars are going in a different direction. If they bring back 70-something-year-old Steve Martin and Martin Short, it just means that you like those two better as comedians. It's not some kind of, man, this is a whole new Oscars. They've got Steve Martin and Martin Short hosting. And Clayton, you're frozen, I think. Hello. Clayton, you're frozen. All right. So it looks like Clayton is frozen, and that is going to be where we end this episode of the AfterB.O. All right. What a weird ending that was. Thanks for watching, everyone.